Hello, my name is Christine and I run a vintage shop called Prima Treasures on Etsy. Today I wanted to talk about the whole concept of vintage and answer the question, why? Why would somebody buy vintage and not regular retail? So I have 3 reasons why you might want to consider vintage. And the first one I'm going to demonstrate with this piece right here, which is a solid brass vase that is about 10 inches tall. I did a quick search on Google, and for about 100, maybe more, you would be able to get a solid brass vase. However, it would not have this cool figural lizard that's on this particular vase. It would be more of a plain version of this look. So in my store, I'm not charging that amount of money for a vintage vase. I think the price I have on this one is maybe 60, 70 bucks. But, for that price, you do get the cool lizard. The other thing I wanted to point out, and I have this as an example, is copper cookware has always been popular. And nowadays, it's actually fairly expensive. So this here is a casserole dish. It's probably about 50 years old. It's from the 70s. And I might be charging 50, 60 bucks for it. If you went someplace like William Sonoma, you'd probably pay about $200 for a comparable copper casserole dish. So vintage can actually save you a good amount of money if you're willing to have something in your home that isn't shiny and brand new, but instead consider something that's been pre-loved, handed down, and now looking for a new home. And the third piece I wanted to show that talks to the whole idea of cost and value is this item right here. And, I can't really see it. There we go. So this is a wooden jewelry box. I'm going to open it up so you can see inside. Okay. And it's made out of real wood. But this look is not something that you would readily find in a store. I like to think of it as sort of rustic, piratey, kind of a fun but definitely thematic look. If you wanted something like that in your house, you would probably struggle to find that on the retail market because it's a very distinctive look, and stores tend to carry more neutral items and or items that are tailored to whatever the designers have decided the current look is going to be. So if you want something that's kind of outside the bounds of what's currently being sold, you're out of luck most of the time. And that's an area where vintage can be there for you, because vintage encompasses like 100 plus years of items that have been made and sold. And so maybe something that you like isn't being sold now. It might have been sold in the 80s. It might have been sold in the 60s. So there's still a chance you can find it. And that kind of leads into my other piece here that I brought, and that is this antique typewriter. Now, you can see that it's got a nice colorful finish. This is actually a gift I got for my husband last year, and he did do some minor repairs and clean it up. So at this point, it is a functional typewriter. And this is the type of thing that I think any guy would love to have in their office as sort of an industrial / steampunk statement piece. And for something like this, you might pay $200 or $300 on the vintage market to get a functional typewriter with a color finish like this one has. And at the same time, if you compare that to going someplace like Pier 1 or Wayfair and spending $200 or $300 on, a sculpture or some other type of statement piece, this item is made in the USA. It's made of solid metal. It's still functional. And it doesn't cost any resources to produce. So I think as far as getting an eye-catching statement piece for your home office, a typewriter like this is a slam dunk compared to some, let's say generic or maybe mildly interesting decor piece that you find at a retail store. And that kind of leads into my third point about vintage, which is that any vintage piece you buy is eco-friendly, and it's saving resources for those who are concerned about climate change. Every one of these things was already made. 10, 20, 30, 100 years ago. The resources have already been used. So you're not adding any new burden to manufacturing when you buy a vintage item. You're buying something that has already been produced, already been loved, needs a new home, and I personally think that that's a great way to show concern for the environment by anytime you can buy a decor piece that isn't made brand new in a factory, you're saving resources. And if it's something like this where it already has a styling that you like or that works with the room that you want to put it in, why not buy vintage if you have the option to do so? So those are 3 reasons that I think it's perfectly reasonable and in fact can be better to buy vintage over new. But I did also want to touch on one bonus reason, and that is specifically about the pandemic. Now, we keep hearing on the news about how distribution and supply chains are strained and that you have to shop early because you might not find all the things you want in stock if you wait too long. And I can tell you, as a vintage seller, we don't have that problem. We already sourced all the items in our store. So when you come to a vintage shop, say on Etsy, that work has already happened and those items are already available, and you don't have to worry about whether or not we will be able to get it to you, because if it's in our store, we have it and it's ready to go. So the bonus reason is basically vintage shops do not have supply chain problems the same way that retail stores do. So by shopping vintage, you're kind of ducking that aspect of the Christmas shopping crunch. I hope you give it some thought and consider vintage the next time you're looking to put decor in your home, or potentially even as gifts. I personally have given vintage items as gifts. I make a point to find things that I know the person is interested in, and if I see a cool vintage piece that falls into that category, I have no problem gifting it. So I hope this helps you have a little bit better understanding of vintage and how it might fit into your lifestyle. Thanks for watching.